I was on vacation recently and had a chance to meet a lot of new folks at dinner. And we were on a cruise ship for a couple of weeks above the Arctic Circle. Awesome experience. But, being on a boat for that long and getting to meet dozens and dozens of new people just for brief 10, 15, even 30-minute encounters was really eye-opening. And most of the folks are retired or semi-retired, but, occasionally somebody asks you what you used to do or what do you still do for a living. And I got to talk about, what I do and what my transition looks like going into later life. And it was interesting how many of the people that I spoke to also had careers where they became accidental entrepreneurs. A great case in point, lovely couple we met from England. They'd both had independent careers as employees, but at the later part of their careers, he became a part owner in the engineering firm that he worked for, and she became the owner of her own travel agency business and created a nice future for themselves where they're now living very, very comfortably. But they were accidental entrepreneurs. Neither of them set out to do that. They just found themselves in that position and put their best effort into it and found great results. And that's kind of a recurring theme for us in our industry. So many of us are accidental entrepreneurs, but it was nice to find out that other industries have the same issue. Accidental entrepreneurs are often people who are in the right place at the right time and presented an opportunity that they didn't think existed or wasn't going to be theirs, or maybe they felt they were forced into becoming a business owner and that was the best option that they have. Their customers told them they needed to do it. Their coworkers needed to do it. Their spouse needed to say to do it. Who knows what drove us into deciding that we were going to become an entrepreneur, run our own business, and be responsible for our own success or failure. But the fact of the matter is we have shared stories and we have shared experiences. And I draw on those all the time. And today's podcast, I want to talk about one of the most important lessons that I've learned from being an accidental entrepreneur, working with so many of you, and just getting out there in the world and looking at business through the lens of individuals who try and make a difference for their customers and for themselves, which is at the heart of every accidental entrepreneur. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I've got some big insights for you. And as always, thanks for listening. Welcome to your weekly dose of uncommon sense, helpful insights, and tough love. I'm your host, Tom Stimson. The Intentional Success Podcast comes to you through the generous support of Mertz Crew.
Mertz Crew helps top AV companies book quality AV freelancers. Your choice, your rates. We handle contracts, insurance, and payments. You save time, cost, and reduce risk. Start today at mertzcrew.com.
Now on to the show. So today I want to talk about scalability in terms of manpower and brain power. Very often, almost every week, well, certainly every week, my clients come to me and say, hey, I need to hire someone. We need to fix this problem. We need to fill a gap. We need to accommodate growth. We need to address, failures in process. And it all comes down to hiring another person. And we look at this. We treat this as a business exercise. We said, what's the need for this person? What's the justification? And what's the cost? Now, very typically, somebody will tell me, hey, here's the problem I'm trying to solve. Because as you know, that's always my question. What's the problem you're trying to solve? Well, we're really falling behind in sales. All our salespeople seem to be too busy, and we get an RFP and there's nobody to handle it. So we need another salesperson. I said, great. All right, what are you going to spend on that person? Well, I was thinking we just get an entry-level person that's probably, $40,000 or $50,000 a year. And I go, oh, wait a minute. You didn't give me an entry-level problem. You said your sales organization is stuck. Is it stuck at the bottom or is it stuck at the top? Okay, because we're not going to fix a sales organization from the bottom up. We're going to fix a sales organization from the top down. Who's your sales leader? Why aren't they fixing it? Why has this problem even made it to our attention? And that's when we get to the crux of the problem. When we look at manpower as a solution, we tend to undervalue the brain power that's necessary to be successful at it. And it generally starts like this. Well, Bob, based on the sales problem you're describing, I think you need to hire either a sales manager or a heavy hitter business development person. Oh my goodness, what's that going to cost me? That's the wrong question. I mean, yeah, we got to answer the question. I'll tell them. I said, yeah, you're talking about somebody who's $120,000, $180,000 a year. Oh my God, that's expensive. Compared to what? So whenever we're looking at adding people, if the first words out of your mouth are, oh, that's expensive, I need to find a less expensive solution, you haven't looked at what the problem is worth. So it's only expensive if your problem is not very valuable. If your problem is extremely valuable, then what expense would it not be worth it? How much would you have to spend to solve that problem for it not to be worth solving that problem? You follow me? So manpower and brain power. Manpower is inexpensive by definition. It's a commodity. It's people. It's boots on the ground. It's, neck down labor, if that's what you want to call it. It's warm bodies. That's manpower. Manpower is valuable if properly trained, properly led, properly focused. Okay. But who's going to do the training, the leading, and the focusing? And that's where the brain power comes in. So trying to solve a problem with manpower instead of brain power might look good on the P&L because it sounds less expensive. But the fact of the matter is, I wouldn't have this great career of being a consultant, advisor, and coach if all we did was make great decisions all the time. And I will tell you, using manpower to plug a process or leadership issue, okay, is like throwing money away. We're kicking the can down the road. So being a scalable business, we operate with fewer people, but we need them to be twice as smart, which means every person you add needs to meet that criteria. Yes, we can realign the people on your team, get them to their higher and better use of their time and resources. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have some capacity constraints. And those capacity constraints aren't necessarily going to be solved by adding manpower or human power, whatever you want to call it. What we do need is the right brain power. And very often the brain power that we have in our organization isn't up to the task, which is how we got here. But we did the best we can with the people that we have. So now we have to add brain power. Why? Because that's what's going to let you move forward. But it's going to be more expensive. However, it's going to have a higher return. So can you buy the cheapest wireless microphone on the market and get it to work and get through a few shows? Yes, you can. Will it allow you to be a sustainable technology business for a long time? No, it probably won't. It's going to break. It's going to fail you. It's going to make you look bad. You're going to lose customers. The investment is in mission critical gear that meets the criteria of our customers, so you buy better gear. Why do we not apply that same idea to people? So let's talk about today, if we're going to scale our companies by adding brain power, then we need to have a healthier relationship with why it seems so expensive. Because the fact of the matter is, it's expensive is an emotional response that doesn't have data, facts, or sound thinking behind it. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It's expensive compared to what? I've had, in one conversation, I've had somebody tell me, oh my God, it's going to cost $5,000 to truck our gear to Orlando. That's a lot of money. Compared to what? Compared to not sending it? Compared to subrunning the entire job? Compared to not winning it? How is $5,000 a big deal? And then they will turn around and they'll spend $50,000 to buy a new video projector or $200,000 to buy an LED wall, but the words "that's too expensive" never came out of their mouth. So it really has to do with what is our perception of the value that the expense is going to create. And if we don't appreciate the value of brain power, we're never going to hire the right people. We're going to keep hiring manpower. So how do we get out of this loop of bad decision making where we start to have a healthier relationship with what things will cost, instead of saying that's more than we want to spend, which is a better way of saying it's expensive, okay? Or maybe we don't need to spend that after all. Maybe there's a better solution. So rather than blaming the solution for what it costs, let's understand why it costs that and what we can do with it. So there's 3 things that I want you to think about here today. We need more data, okay? Data is non-emotional. Data is numbers. It is facts and figures. It's charts and graphs. It's dry as it can be. If we look at it, we may not be impressed, but it will inform our decisions if we understand exactly what it is. So data is functional. We took in $100,000 of revenue for talent to crew shows, but we spent $110,000 to secure that talent, which means we lost money. That is data. Now, what does that data tell us to do? Well, it's telling us you're not charging enough money or you're paying too much. Which one is it? Well, it's real easy to figure out if you're paying too much because you get out there and shop around in the marketplace and you assess the quality of the people. Are these the right people to do the right job? Yes, they are. Great. Then obviously you're not charging enough. Data is very simple. However, there's emotion applied to data, which makes it almost ineffective. For instance, in order to be profitable in talent, in procuring talent for your customers, if you raised your prices, somebody's going to say, and this is an emotional statement, our clients won't pay for that. How do you know? I just know. And that argument right there wins more battles in a sales meeting than any other argument that I've come across, because it is pure play emotion. We're holding the client in ransom through the salesperson who's saying, I can't win this business for you if you tell me to follow these rules. Your rules are therefore wrong because I can't win the business. The fact of the matter is, if we're telling our clients what everything costs on a line-by-line basis, we are giving them too much data. We're creating more emotional data points for them, and we're telling them that every number matters, when all that really matters is, what's the value that we're going to do, what is the scope of work, and what is a fair price for it. And we can't get to that moment if we don't look objectively at the data, set our emotional feelings aside about what it means, and let it tell us what it actually says. You take in less money than you spend, you have a business problem. Pure and simple. Now, let's get us down into the facts. So once our data tells us to look at something, and you can look at it unemotionally and go, okay, there's something to be understood here. What other facts can we gather? Well, what facts are for is to reduce conjecture. That knee-jerk reaction that says, oh, our clients won't pay for that is conjecture. Okay, it is unnecessary, it is unhelpful, and it is not based on facts. Now, if you sat down and did, research and studies and focus groups with all of your clients, and you presented different pricing models to them, and they gave you feedback that says, yes, I'm really uncomfortable paying $1,500 to $1,800 a day for a lead technician, but it doesn't bother me at all to pay $25,000 to send a truck to Orlando. You could use that data, you could use those facts and come up with a pricing paradigm that makes them happy. However, it wouldn't scale, because on a job that is light on trucking and high on talent is going to make, well, no money at all. So we've got to let the data guide us to the facts and let the facts get us to the decisions. Now, decisions are the hard part. That's number 3. We got data, we got facts, but now we got to make a decision. And if your team does not have the ability to make decisions, if you get caught in analysis paralysis, you get stuck in that, that's too expensive, that's too much money, that's too many people, I don't like that. If you let the emotions keep pulling you back down to the data level where you don't trust your own data, therefore you won't look at the facts, you're not going to make decisions. Okay? And the inability to make a decision is what's going to keep you from succeeding. Okay? The people who succeed and grow and profit in this business and have wildly loyal customers and employee teams are the people who can make decisions. So use the data, check the facts, and make a decision. Now, the hard part after all of that is not the data, the facts, and the decisions. The hard part comes with being comfortable with your choices afterwards. And that's where most of us need the emotional support and validation of working with peers, advisors, coaches to help us check our thinking, make sure that we thought this through, challenge the things, poke here and there to make sure we're coming to a sound decision, and run the what-if scenarios to say, hey, I made the right decision. In the short term, it's going to cost us money. In the long term, it's going to pay off this way. And make a decision about how long you're going to make the investment before you reassess your decision. So scalability isn't about manpower. It is about brain power. And the most important thing, brain power you have, is what the brain you already have that's sitting on top of your shoulders that you need to use to look at the data, consider the facts, and make decisions. But the brain power you also need is the brain power that you bring into your business, which is continually upgrading the output of your team, the capacity of your team to look at more data, understand more facts, and make better decisions to keep you moving forward. That doesn't mean that there's not a place for the employees who are not part of the brain trust. Okay? There is work for them to be done. But if you want to grow the business, and if you want to get out of the rut or get out of stagnation or take great vacations on cruise ships for weeks up in the Arctic Ocean, then you're really going to have to invest in the brain power and have the patience and the trust to allow it to work its magic so that you can grow your business, you can keep more customers and more employees happy and do high quality work, because it's not about manpower. We can get manpower anywhere. It's about what's going on up here, and that's what we need to pay attention to. So thanks for listening. Keep growing and keep your questions coming in. If you want to find out more about today's episode, go to trstimpson.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes, related links, and tons of other valuable resources. If you haven't already subscribed to the Intentional Success Podcast, please do so, and I'd greatly appreciate if you would rate and review the show. Also, if you think you might be a good fit to work together or want more information about the Stimson Group, I'd love to hear from you. Visit trstimpson.com for more information.